Hello and welcome back to HR Stew. My name is Regina Dyerly.
And I'm Holly Nels. And this is HR Stew.
Employees say they want transparency. Leaders say they're trying to be transparent. But somewhere between open communication and complete oversharing, things can get messy. In today's episode of HR Stew, we're diving into one of the trickiest balancing acts in the workplace, transparency. How much should employees really know about company decisions, finances, layoffs, promotions, leadership conflict, or even salary information? Because while transparency can build trust, too much of the wrong information at the wrong time can create chaos. I'm going to start off this episode with a question. What is one topic you think companies should not be transparent about when it comes to employee communications, and why?
I think it can be tricky discussing layoffs before they happen, because what if they ruin relationships that you have with clients, with vendors, with whomever? But you also, I can see the flip side to where if there are multiple people who are going to be laid off, allowing them that leeway to say, hey, I'm going to lay you off in a month or a couple months. You know the financial situation within the company, and we have to make these decisions, and we want to make this as easy as possible and give them notice so they can start looking for another job too. I can see the benefit there. And it really just depends on the employee and your relationship with that employee.
Yeah, I think that's a tough one because I think there's pros and cons, obviously, but always better to give people more notice so they can be prepared. For me, I guess it's a couple of things. I would say number one is I think as leaders, it is our job to bear the burden of some of the information that we have and not to worry or stress out the employees. Not to be secretive, but some things when it's not defined yet, I think we're paid to take that stress. Right. And I think the other thing is I think leaders having debates in front of staff that's not fully thought out. I think as a leadership team, you should be on the same page in front of your staff.
I agree.
So I think having those type of conversations, which I've seen happen actually, is stressful and inappropriate. Come to us when you guys all make a decision about something, and then give us an update.
Don't make us be the middleman.
Yeah, we don't need to be part of the process.
Yeah.
And that's knowing that you guys aren't on the same page, which can also cause stress. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
It was different in my head, and then when I started saying it, it came out different.
The modern workplace expects a level of openness that companies didn't always provide in the past. Employees want to be in the know, but how and why has transparency become a big expectation? So my first question is going to be, do you think that employees expect more transparency now than they did at the beginning of your career?
100%. The whole environment is different than it was when I first started working, and maybe someone of the generation before would feel even more different, but I feel like we just didn't ask questions. It just wasn't the same. First of all, when I first started working, there wasn't email or messaging systems or anything like that.
Or the instant, right? Yes.
Yeah, so we just went to work and kind of stayed in our little bubble, and the only information we got was from the person we reported to in general. Maybe there was a company
inter-office mail.
Yeah, yes, in the yellow manila envelope, the big envelope. So yeah, I think it's changed a lot. I don't think it would have occurred to me to ask questions. I just did my job, and that was it.
I've always been curious, and I've always asked questions, but you're right. It was a lot different. And not that things were kept secretive, but we didn't have all of this Teams and email and this ability to communicate quickly to all employees.
You said you didn't think it was out of secrecy, but I don't think back, at least when I started working, that they thought we deserved to know things. I really don't. It just wasn't the way it was.
Not for me. It wasn't that way. I didn't feel like things were kept from me out of secrecy, because if I asked, I would always get
I'm saying it's not
answer.
Secrecy.
Yeah.
I think that it was because they didn't think that it didn't occur to them to be transparent, because that's just not the way that things were.
I think the way you phrased it, we didn't have a right to know. I didn't ever feel that anybody thought you didn't have a right to know. Maybe they thought that nobody really wanted to know.
I don't know that they thought about it that way either, because I don't think it occurred to them that we would have a right to know. That's my perception. That was my experience. Obviously, my first adult job was in the Wall Street area, very conservative, very male dominated at that time. And I was in a field that was not male dominated. It was recruiting. HR is more female dominated even back then. So just different. I just think different.
Yeah, I agree.
You guys started your careers at different times too.
Correct.
Different times in different industries. So yes.
Yeah. 10 years is a big difference, actually, especially back then.
Why do you think transparency has become such a major workplace expectation?
I think there's a lot of reasons why that is. Number one, I think that a lot of, especially the younger generation, have seen their parents be blindsided by layoffs or information or closures and all those different things, right? I think that's also why a lot of company loyalty has gone away as well. There's just too many cautionary tales to ignore. Number two is social media, right? We are just used to getting information like all day, every day. Maybe it's before that. Maybe it was a 24-hour news cycle. I don't know. But it's about how much information is accessible, how much they could just Google on their phone. So when that's not an option, I think it does cause anxiety and stress for people. So that's my take on that.
I agree with both of your takes. We're in instant gratification world right now.
Have you ever worked somewhere that felt too secretive?
I don't know that I worked for a company that was secretive. I've definitely worked for people who were secretive, kept me seemingly purposely out of the loop, right? And I know I've told the story before of that VP of operations. I was working for a company prior to here when I started that I was in the know. I was a key decision maker. I was in all the meetings. And as soon as she started, that completely unraveled, right? And she did not think I deserved to have a seat at the table, right? So that's my experience with that. And it is completely demoralizing, especially if you've had a seat before. So that I would say, not necessarily a company, like I said, and that's not the only person I've worked for that definitely kept items close to their chest for their own benefit, right? So, yeah.
So it's not necessarily a company. It's more like different people have been secretive.
Yeah. So at my last company, when I first started working there, it was half owned by an Australian call center. And their philosophy was open book management. And it was like, oh God, what was the slogan? The numbers that count was the slogan. So we had numbers assigned to everything, right? And it actually was really compelling. And they had profit sharing that was assigned to the open book management. So you knew if you did all these things, you're going to get a bonus. So it's designed to drive ownership-like behavior because the decisions you make could have an impact on whether or not everybody gets a bonus. And once the company the US portion of it bought out the Australian portion, that all went away. So I worked there during both, and what a difference it was.
Oh, wow.
Actually, I thought it was really powerful. It is hard. It took a lot of work to compile all the numbers and to make meaning of the numbers and to actually present it in a way that even the most junior person could understand. But it was part of the culture, and I thought it was fantastic. I would love to work for another company or at least design a company that was open book management. We don't know how to do that with HR per se. We've tried to figure out, it was a call center, right? So it was really easy.
Yeah.
You take this many calls, this many, you abandon this many, you take this many. It was easier to compile.
Right.
So yeah.
Do you think transparency can improve trust and engagement?
I think transparency and allowing others to have a buy-in can improve trust and engagement. If you're transparent, open about things that are going wrong, things that are going right, and allow the employees to engage in process change or improvements or anything, it really allows them to have buy-in. I'm a big change management fan.
I think to a point, I think you could even be transparent about what you can't be transparent about. Some things you're not at liberty to talk about. But I think if you explain it, I think people just want to be respected. And actually letting people know what's going on is showing respect. So yeah, I agree.
All right, so of course transparency sounds great in theory until everyone knows everything. Then suddenly people panic and Teams and Slack become a conspiracy forum for employees. Can too much transparency actually damage morale? And give me examples or why you think otherwise.
Yeah, I think there's some things that you're not getting paid enough to worry about at some jobs, right? So I think if there's financial difficulties that you're trying to work through, maybe there's a couple of different solutions. I don't think you have to share that unless you're in a position that you know that this is happening, right? Or you're relaying that information. So yeah, I think there's leadership risks and different things that happen that I don't think that necessarily have to be shared while you're going through them. But afterwards, then I do think that it should be. So yes, do I think that it can damage morale? Yeah, if people are worried about their job and they can't focus on anything else or worried about what's going to happen or etc., I think 100% it can.
Well, and this goes back to what you said earlier about leadership should bear the burden of having a lot of this knowledge and not share it with everybody else and make other people worry about their jobs or anything else. And you also said you have the right to, you're being transparent. You can say, I can't be transparent with this question or with the status of what's going on. But yes, I agree with everything you said.
I like how agreeable you are today.
I am very agreeable.
Have you seen leaders overshare information that created unnecessary panic?
100%.
Me too.
I can't tell you. Even just when leaders share things, why people are leaving or why people are unhappy, and it just creates panic and a morale shift and a cultural shift because there are some things that you should not share with team members.
I definitely have. At my last company, we had a very dynamic leader as far as the CEO, and he shared uncomfortable things, I would say.
Like personal things?
Yeah, and it wasn't inappropriate per se, but it was too much information that people did not need to know.
Right.
But he was just a really gregarious, two extremes, right? Teddy bear to one extreme, and then whatever the opposite of a teddy bear is.
Fly off the handle.
So, yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways that you could overshare and make people concerned in different ways.
How do you communicate uncertainty without causing chaos?
I think a really good way of doing this is if you have to communicate the uncertainty, say, this is where we're at. Here are a few different options that we're looking at. And I want you to know behind closed doors, we're working on a few different options. We're working on a few different plans. And once we have a plan of action, we'll definitely roll it out to the team. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. I think that would be the most appropriate.
And just assuring them 100% of our effort is going towards resolving whatever the issue is to fix this. Yeah.
All right, so to close it up, when it comes to the topic of transparency, salaries and promotions certainly come up. So let's discuss that. Do you think salary transparency helps or hurts workplace culture?
It depends.
I think it helps in general. I think ranges help. And I think I really like that Colorado and a lot of other states are posting internally and externally ranges because I think it just creates a fairness that I think is
needed.
Needed and the right thing to do, etc. Knowing people's exact salaries, because people will be upset about a few $100 difference.
Right.
Look, you can't stop people from asking each other or telling each other, but in general, I don't think unless it's a publicly
traded?
Nonprofit, thank you.
You're welcome.
Where the salaries are posted, I think it's healthy.
I think even from a recruiting perspective, I'm just thinking back in the days before it was required to post it on job postings, you would call somebody and say, this job pays $20 an hour. And they're like, oh, that's way too low. And this is an admin position. It's well in line with the salary band, but they wouldn't want to take it for $20 an hour. And it was such a waste of time. So now they won't even apply for it because it's posted.
It is actually helpful for them to know. Sometimes people still will apply and then they think they can negotiate. And that's happened to us internally. And that's unfortunate because if we go through the trouble of actually comping a position and posting a range, we don't have wiggle room typically,
How transparent should companies be about promotion decisions?
I think they don't need to go into specifics, but they need to give the rationale. I think if you have an existing worker who goes through an interview process and then they're not communicated to that they didn't get the job. They just find out that the other person did get the job, which I have seen happen,
Oh, wow.
which is just completely demoralizing.
Yes.
They don't have to tell them why the person got the job. They should tell them why they didn't.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't have to be, you don't have this, you don't have that, you don't have this. This is what you need to work on so that next time this position or another position like this opens, you're prepared.
Right. I agree.
All right, so next we go to the segment Ask HR, where we go online to the Ask HR forum where people can ask professionals questions and get answers. This comes from user SnowOranges1322, and I'm going to skip the title. It reads, I work at a bank in Texas. They hired an HR professional, but there's no HR department, just one lady. I've had issues with a coworker. We work in close quarters, so I can never really be away from her during the workday. I'll spare the details. Long story short, last week, I turned in my letter of resignation and had a meeting with the HR person. I was honest and told her that I was leaving because of my coworker, among other things. Fast forward to today, my coworker comes in after a meeting with the HR person and says, I'm not trying to stir the pot or anything, but HR person told me you're quitting because of me. My question is, does this have anything to do with confidentiality? Do I approach the HR person and say something about it? I'm not trying to get anyone in trouble, but I'm genuinely curious because it made the entire rest of the workday very awkward and it feels unprofessional.
It is very unprofessional. The HR person should not have said anything to this employee, but you're leaving at this point. What does it really matter? Just work out your resignation period. Hopefully it's short and move on.
Okay, let's be fair to the HR person for a second and say, maybe they wanted to find out as part of an investigative process. We don't know some of the information that was given. Maybe they were actually just clarifying information or asking questions, and maybe they did ask for it to be confidential, and the employee didn't honor that. And confidential doesn't mean secret either. So I think that's a possible scenario. I'm not defending. I don't know. It's also possible that this person was like, guess what's happening? You'll never believe this. But they might have also been finding out if we replace this position, is this next person also going to quit because maybe there's some behavioral issues there that we need to address. So we don't know under what circumstances this person, the HR person presented this. This sounds like an employee who has issues.
Right.
So maybe they just didn't handle it correctly. But yeah, if she's uncomfortable, she should just leave.
And maybe that this Snow Oranges, they should tell the HR person, hey, so-and-so came to me and said XYZ. If they are completing an investigation, then they'll have that additional information for her file or whomever's file that they can't keep things confidential.
I don't know. I think if she was quitting because of this person, maybe she doesn't like confrontation, but I don't know. I don't think that I personally would not have had an issue with it. Been like, yeah, you're not enjoyable to work next to. Have you never gotten that feedback before?
Yeah.
I don't think I would have had an issue with it. Well, at least not at this point in my career. I would have said things to her. I wouldn't have quit my job because of another person. I would have filed a complaint.
Yeah. I've been known to quit my
ask
job
for a different
because
seat,
of another person.
We have to assume that maybe she got another job.
Right.
So maybe she's going to be in a better position, but I don't know. I don't like letting someone else have that much power over me.
Yeah. I don't know if it's power over you. It's more taking power or ownership of your mental health is how I took it. I'm not going to let somebody treat me like crap and nothing happens about it. So I'm going to move on, find something else.
Well, yeah. Again, we only know what we know from this letter. It's pretty short.
Yeah, it's pretty short. Their first question was, does this have anything to do with confidentiality? I'm assuming they're asking from a legal standpoint. What's your take on that?
I don't think she did anything. The HR person didn't do anything illegal.
Yeah.
All she did was tell the truth, right? That person did quit. That was the reason that she gave, right? So,
And you're discussing the workplace environment. So,
right. Culture.
yes.
I do think potentially, are we assuming this was her last day that this happened? Did it sound like that?
To me, it sounded like it was pretty early.
That's how I took it. It was pretty early.
Yeah, I think that the HR person could have waited until she was gone.
Or closer to the end.
To ask the question if she was going to put her on the spot like that. Assuming that that's what happened.
Right.
Right. She could have waited. So I think that's an area of absolute opportunity there. If you know that you have someone with behavioral issues that this other employee had an issue with, and you're seemingly not planning on terminating this other employee because of it, why put that employee through that, the exiting employee?
And another thought is if the HR person asked to do an exit interview with this employee, I'm assuming that's what it was, or conversation, and the HR person then shared that the reason they're leaving is because of you, that makes it to where other current employees may not want to share as much as they're leaving the organization or file a complaint because they're worried about their confidentiality, and they're not going to be transparent with leadership.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. We want to thank you for listening, and if you've enjoyed your time with us, please subscribe and leave a review. If you have any HR stories or questions to share, message us on Instagram at hr.stew. I'm Holly.
And I'm Regina.
And we'll see you next time on HR Stew.